All right, one more preseason event before the season starts. Welcome along, folks, to Tier 1 preseason here in Texas tonight for the event. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles, and originally I had RPL Titan Iron scheduled to be alongside me, but he could not do it. So I have Lando Fornoris, who was commentating Tier 2 yesterday, and is here once again for tonight. Welcome along. I believe you're fixing audio, so I will get you in just a moment, Lando. But yeah, for those of you who are not aware from other preseason events this weekend so far, we had Tier 3 on Thursday. That will be Thursday each week. I have the Tier 3 schedule in my DMs, but we will go through that probably tomorrow when it's released rather than tonight. We do know the first race is Bahrain. But, yep, they ran preseason at Austria just a few days ago, and Wavy Knife was the winner. He was the one of the two drivers from a higher tier, just like Egg. Born in Shanghai, out of the Tier 3 full-time drivers, though, came across the line first. Tier 2 yesterday, it was GTK on top again, and for the second time in a row in preseason. And then earlier today in F2, Jack Miles dominated and did what he could in order to, well, prove that he's a favorite, really, and maybe go for a full-time seat. That'd be great for him to do. So, yep, those are the preseason events from so far. Last week, we had the two Ferraris, 1-2 of Joe Speed and Gecko, and Reese and Minico were third and fourth to end off things. Things have changed since then with the handling update, the performance patch, and a few other things as well with that car performance in terms of straight line speed as well. A lot has changed. We'll go over that throughout the session, but Lando, I'm going to guess you have your audio working now, and welcome along. Good to have you.
Hello. I'm back again. It's time for the good drivers of Tier 1. Not like there's maybe too big of a difference. But yeah, the handling models changed. We saw it yesterday in action with Tier 2. It was nice. I enjoyed it. I think it provides talent and actual rewarding driving if you do everything right rather than slamming your sim rig into a 90-degree corner just to gain 3/10, which is always a better alternative. So I'm excited. I know a lot of people don't care about the handling model. A lot of people are crying about it, but I like it, and that's what all that matters.
Yeah, and I think this handling model definitely takes a little bit more skill in terms of the way things are. It's not too much different, but it's very nice to see. Before we get laps going, which will start from Hunted LAX, the previous Tier 2 champion, and I think first reserve for McLaren this season, outside of the Alpine drivers. We'll go over the straight line speed of the cars now, and then we'll get to the laps right after. So the fastest to slowest cars in a straight line are as follows. You have Ferrari and Williams at 355 kph. This is all in kph, so I'm not going to keep saying it. Then you have, right after that, third fastest with Red Bull and Sauber. Then, after them, you have McLaren, who are fifth fastest. Sixth fastest at 351 is a three-way tie between Aston, Alpine, and VCarb. Then your slowest two cars in a straight line are Mercedes and Haas at 350. So 5 kph separating these cars in a straight line, Lando, but at the same time, though, I think it's a bit more accurate where the cars are at. Alpine, before this update, were a bit too high. Williams weren't as high, but they were up there. And now we see the exact kind of thing where it's been updated to the way it should be. And also, one thing to speak about McLaren, your favorite F1 team, Lando, obviously because of your name, they get to showcase what they're capable of now, because instead of being the fourth fastest car, they are the second fastest car now, and we didn't get to see them yesterday in the Tier 2 race at all.
Yeah, it's good to see. Not only do we have one McLaren out there, we have both McLarens in the field today. So this will be a real test to see where the benchmark is. We have 2 Red Bulls and 2 McLarens. We also have 2 Ferraris. So this is kind of where we'll see the pecking order of where these cars really are. We all know that last year the McLaren, surprisingly, at Kota was in real life pretty damn good. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're transferring that into this game, but if they're going based off that performance, it should be neck and neck between Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari.
I absolutely agree with you. Speaking of our 2 McLaren drivers tonight, you have FRC Knights, who was previously in the Ferrari Academy, and he said J&T did not resolve his contract early enough, so he is now a part of the Alpine slash McLaren Academy. So that's obviously very nice to see Knights at least have a full-time reserve spot now for the McLaren team. So, Lando, something we spoke about yesterday, and we've got to remind the other viewers who don't usually watch Tier 2, who are watching Tier 1 today about this. ERS is going to be a big thing through qualifying. I'm watching HSR Gecko as he deploys a bit of overtake down the back straight. You're going to see a lot of drivers, and we mentioned this yesterday, I'll mention it again. We're going to see a lot of drivers manage their ERS a bit differently on their qualifying laps. We've not seen this in the last few games. I think the last time we saw ERS managed like this on qualifying laps was back in 2021 on that F1 game. So it's going to be similar to that, but a tactical game in terms of how you go fastest and where you find your time.
Absolutely, and I really enjoy it. I think it really makes whether or not where do you want the lap time to be. If you know you're good in a straight line, like a Ferrari, like a Red Bull maybe. Maybe you don't need to press the button as much compared to maybe an Alpine or a Haas where you need the straight line speed to maybe gain a bit of the deficit that you have. It's really just a matter on where do you feel the most comfortable in your race car and where do you feel that you need to push that button more. As we saw towards the end of that lap with Gecko, his battery is below 10%. Essentially, that's game over in a way. You don't really deploy any electrical horsepower that these Formula One cars provide you. So it's all about timing. I think from the 5 lappers that me and you have done, you've been second victim to everything that I've been doing, where you basically always have to think about the next sector. Think about the next corner. What do you want to do? Do you want to deploy? Do you not want to deploy? How do you want to deploy it? And really, it's all about positioning and timing. It's very strategic. It brings another level into this game. And I think it's going to provide, as yesterday in the Tier 2 race, some really interesting racing. And that's what we're here for. Interesting racing.
Something I also noticed as well that has not been pointed out yet on any of our streams, but some of the drivers have picked up on it, and others have not. Others have been misconcepted by it. When you're using non-ERS, your light that would be blinking when you're under 10% will start blinking. So drivers usually are used to that being an indicator of the person in front of me is below 10% in the battery. But if TSR Cryptic here, as I'm on board with him, if he, or well, on with him, not on board, but if you had seen him switch to none when he started that, when he was about to start the lap right there and prep himself, his ERS light was blinking because of that, not because he was below 10%. So that's something else the drivers will have to get used to as well. You mentioned ERS as well, Lando, but every different well, and it will show up when it's deployment used too, by the way. But it will also be a big factor as well when you notice that other cars have different ERS factors. Also, the Ferrari tire wear, we spoke about that a lot last game. That seems to be fixed from what we've heard. But again, like we're going to always mention, every other car has different tire wear. So it's something to mention every other race or every other weekend. But one other thing to mention in terms of each car, and we'll go on board with this guy on a lap. It's his first time in RPL on a lap, and he's about to spin it. FX7 Danny is in a car that's full of straight line speed. Now, it should have been this way in the last game, Lando, with the Williams being fast in a straight line, but it's finally fixed itself to where it's this game. They get the chance to be fast in a straight line.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think, last year's game, I think it would have been nice to have, the circuit on circuit type performance with these cars. And I think for the Williams, it had a pretty good run in real life here at Kota. Obviously, granted, Logan Sargent got points due to plank gate, but we don't talk about that. But it is nice to see that some cars are going to come alive at different circuits. Other cars might not hook up. Like, who knows what the Red Bull's going to be like at street circuits? They tend to
Very
struggle
true.
a little more. And, you know, like you said, with the Ferrari and their tire wear improvements, it also adds that other level where I think yesterday we kind of saw it. You have to maintain tire life. You really now have to
More
nurse your
even for
tires.
everybody, it seems.
It does, and I think the crazy thing, and this is a good circuit to see it on, who wants to push first? Who's gonna be the one that wants to go all out with their tire first, and then have that, like we saw at the end of the first stint yesterday, we saw JTK start to struggle on those medium tires after going furious for the first 8 laps, trying to brake, trying to get at least a 3-second gap. So I think it's really just gonna be a matter on when do you want to push, and how much are you willing to kill your tires to break that all-important DRS chain? Is it worth
That
it?
is very true.
I think at this track, I do think it's worth it. But I also like the game.
Yeah.
I think this track, you look at the first sector, and it really does remind me of the Silverstone first sector. Not first sector, second sector of Silverstone with Maggots and Beckett's. And yesterday, in the 5-lappers that I did with J&T and Ryan, there's a lot of dirty air games you can play.
Very true.
I think the relative gap that I would want between me and the car in front to play the games of dirty air is about half a second. If you can keep that person about half a second to 8/10, you should be able to survive one straight of an attack. But
A lot of people will be reminded of Alonso at Australia, by the way, with what you just said.
it is a very crucial game now with what do you want to do, and it brings so many more factors as we see in real life. You know, the undercut, the overcut. Who wants to do it? I think this year's game you're going to see a lot of different stuff, and I'm here for it. It's about time this game gives us. There's a game that finally gives us this meta of push or to not push, and so many scenarios in there. We haven't had a safety car yet. We don't know, so we haven't gotten anything yet. We've had a pure 36-lap race around Brazil. Hopefully, we do get the same here at Kota. It's going to be all to play for, and I think anybody's got a chance, as long as you can keep your car on black stuff.
FRC Knights, 5,000s away from HSR Gecko. Ferrari versus McLaren at the top of the board. By the way, when we watch FX7 Danny's lap, he only was 2/10 slower than Reese, even with the mistake that Reese had on his lap, and Danny had on the start of his lap as well. So, interesting stuff right there. Reese, oh, he just went over the limits right there and stepped out of bounds. That is going to be a track limit deletion. What would have it been? It would have been a 31.3. That would have set him 6th fastest. Well, that did happen. I believe it was Dom clawing his way up to 8th place. There's a Ferrari crossing the line. Let me get the timing back up and take the tires off. We're going to watch our top guys and see what they do on their laps as well while we're at it. But yeah, this will be the quest for pole position, the last pole position of preseason, by the way. So that's why if you see our viewership down throughout the weekend when we do post that later on tonight after Canadian Grand Prix qualifying, that will be why. Everyone knows there's... Oh, and Haunted's invalidated too. Oh my gosh. Everyone knows you got the 24-hour Le Mans on for RPL as well. So we got a lot of our members either tuning into that or racing in it. And we've got a lot of other stuff with drivers taking part in things. That's also why you see a lower grid too. That was Egg leapfrogging himself into 6th place. But Lando, with 5 minutes remaining, I want to get ourselves on a lap. And as Gecko breaks for turn 12 or 11, this is, ooh, I was just going to give it to you too. He's invalidated. And he was a 10th up too. Track limits around this circuit, so costly every time.
It's a very, very strict track. It is a track that will punish any kind of off-track excursion, as Cryptic through the first sector is half a second up on his lap time. He's going down the back stretch into the technical section of Sector 3. This is where I think the ERS game will be played. Do you use none? Do you just keep it in medium and just try to engine brake a lot more? as we see him twisting and turning his RB20 around. He's now 7/10 up. He is flying. He is finding
Big
the
improvement.
pace. He is finding every little bit of traction he can find. And now through the Herman Tilke section right here, quad apex, gonna keep it almost to the inside as we have an Alpine of Kibu just starting a lap where he's coming in. Big slide into the final corner. He's used all his deployment. As we've seen with a couple of drivers, all the deployment's been gone. He's going to go up to P4 with a 31-1. Not too far off, but that might be quickly over for the Red Bull. I don't think he'll have enough time to section his car back.
Unless he does what Egg is doing and cuts the track to get back to the pits. Usually you're not allowed to do that, but it is preseason, so there won't be any penalty for that. For Cryptic's sake, though, Lando, it does not go without mentioning that this guy knows his way around the circuit quite a bit. He is a 3-time podium sitter at this track, and I'm sure he would love to pick up another one this season. Cryptic, by the way, let's go over some of our drivers while we have time to, since nobody is on a lap right now. Even Jack Miles is not on a lap. He's invalidated one. We got HSR Gecko, who's in Ferrari. He's in Ferrari full-time this season. He's alongside Skither, who is running in our iRacing 24-hour Le Mans event. Egg was mowing the lawn, Titan, you're correct. FRC Knight's a full-time reserve now for the Alpine Academy. Hunted Tier 2 McLaren driver. He's doing a hell of a job. He's quite quick in this game. Some guys say he's Tier 1 pace, but we'll find out. Cryptic, the full-time Visa Cash App Racing Bull driver. Speed, the full-time Kick Sauber driver. Redfire Tiger, a Tier 2 Aston Martin driver. Jack Miles in the Aston full-time alongside Owen. Egg and Dom both full-time at Haas. Reese full-time at Red Bull alongside Cookie for another season. FX7 Danny will be making his RPL debut in round 1. We talked about Egg's League merging with RPL. He's one who came over and was in Tier 1 from it. And Kipu57, who put up a good podium fight yesterday in Tier 2, is back for more. He'll be reserving a few times this season in Tier 1 when the drivers do not show up and we have low grids like this one. Hunt is on a lap. We've not got a hot lap set just yet and talked about, but ERS management is so critical on this final lap, let alone at all. Let's go on board with Hunted. Lando, take it away.
Yeah, through the sector 1, just absolutely sending it, just pinned to the floor. He's a 10th up. He's purple in the first sector. Just all the rotation in the world. Everything looks very clean for him. Very nice there on the track limits. He's got the hard part done for now. Now he's just got a hairpin and a straightaway to kind of recoat, get the tires back under his control. As now he goes down the hill, but look at the battery life on the McLaren. He's absolutely fried it down the backstretch. And now, as we wait, he's going to choose a braking point right there in between the 100 and the 50. Doesn't take too much of the inside curve. Nice rotation, nice exit. He's repaid with another 10, 2/10 up. The McLaren is absolutely lighting it up around the Circuit of the Americas. Just dipping the car through every single corner. The car just doing what he wants. He's going to have a Williams in front of him, just starting a lap, but nonetheless, hopefully the Williams gets out of the way here pretty soon. Twisting bit, keeps it just in the limit. He's gonna have enough deployment through the final corner. I don't think he'll get hindered too much up to the line. 4/10 of an improvement. It's a 30.3, top of the board McLaren.
And Gecko is still going 3/10 up on the chart right here. Joe Speed is a 10.5 up as well. Next across the line is a Haas. Egg and Dom both starting their laps. Reese Dainty starting a lap. Kipu starting the lap. So everyone will get to the checkered flag in time to start and set a lap, but they gotta keep it valid though. Gecko, the first one to come across the line. Can he take back pole position, which he once had in this session? He'll do it over Hunted once again. Gecko is fastest. It's a 30.2, the time to beat. But Joe Speed is 6/10 up and could go onto the front row here or take the second row away from FRC Knights. Jack Miles and Cryptic were the two to get the checkered flag and not get a lap in, but Speed is turning on the battery, then turning it back to hot lap, messing with that, trying to find time across the line, front row, 1-2, the Ferraris are fast once again. But now it's up to FRC Knights to maybe stop the Ferraris from being on the front row, but he stepped out of bounds and he spun around. So that will be it from the McLaren, while Red Fire could dispatch Cryptic for 5th place. This will be an incredible effort from Red Fire. He will do it.
What a lap by Red Fire, splitting that Red Bull now. It's an Aston Martin 5.7 with Cryptic in the middle of that sandwich. But what a lap by both of the Ferrari drivers, just pulling so much out. FRC is going to be very disappointed with that. He had enough pace to maybe get to second on the grid. And now it's a Ferrari 1-2, McLaren 3-4. And just by a tenth of a second, it's Gecko over
Reese
speed.
can make the difference, Lando. He's the only one left who can. Both Haas is invalidated. Reese can't do it, but he does go 9th in between them. That is very disappointing from Reese.
Kipu is second up on his time. He's going to move up to P11, rounding off the final row of the grid.
This is a big storyline into the season, Lando. HSR Gecko has not won an RPL Tier 1 race since Season 2 Silverstone, race number 30 of Tier 1, back in 2020. Owen broke a streak last season that was slightly longer. Season 1 Japan to Season 10 Singapore on the Aston Martin, you may remember him winning, and that would be a severely long streak still, even if HSR Gecko can win again this season. Here's your qualifying order.
Yeah, it's Gecko over speed by just under a tenth of a second. Then it's Hunted and FRC Knights, both McLarens lining up behind both Ferraris. Red Fire Tiger with a great lap to put himself P5 ahead of Cryptic Miles. Egg, Reese in the other Red Bull, disappointing 9th. We have a Haas in 10th, and Kipu and FRC rounding off the back end of the grid. A lot to play for. The field, pretty close between the top 8, I'd say. Anything's to play for. It's RPL. We all know what can happen.
Gecko is definitely one of the biggest improvements in terms of where he was last game to this game. Of course, we saw his flashes of pace at the start of last game, but then he improved it even more. Winning a Tier 2 race, getting that Ferrari spot after a bit, getting an Alfa Romeo podium, and then going back to Tier 1 full-time in the second half of the season. He didn't really do so great in that stint besides when he raced for Red Bull, returning to the podium. He picked up a lot of penalties, whether it be on track limits or throughout the steward's office. But yeah, Gecko, his pace is quite insane, to say the least, in terms of where things are at right now, to Invade's point in the Twitch chat. We've got information lap on. We'll talk about things through then. But Lando, Ferrari versus McLaren, from what things look like. I'm a bit disappointed with Reese and Cryptic's pace. I would have thought Cryptic would have been up there more on the one-lap pace. As for Reese, I'm sure he's just getting used to the new handling model, but even then, that's still disappointing to be really close to an Alpina Kipu, who doesn't usually run Tier 1 a whole lot. So, yeah, I'm a bit concerned if I'm Cookie, hearing this from the Le Mans stream, at least hearing that Reese is not doing great, and even Cryptic, he's doing better than Reese, but still not where the Red Bulls should be. I would have expected at least one of the Red Bulls to be in between the Ferraris and McLarens.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, maybe just not up to par as the 12 drivers move their way up for the formation lap, as everybody's scrambling around looking for some temperature in their tires. But yeah, I think for Red Bull, it is a bit of a disappointment as we have some disqualifications happening. But I think this is Ferrari's race to lose now, isn't it? I think Gecko and Speed really do have a lot of pace, but both of the McLarens can get off well and challenge in the turn 1. This could be a race where you're gonna need your teammate. This could be the first time we see the teammate DRS. You want to keep your teammate behind. You want to keep him honest. I think this is a great time to see what's going to happen.
Just a reminder as well, Ferrari and McLaren were in a big fight for second in the Constructors' Championship, just to end last season, by the way, on F123. Here are your tires that we have on our starting grid. Knights on the mediums, Kipu on the mediums, Danny on the mediums. Everyone else is on the hards. It may be a 12-card grid, but from what we saw earlier today in F2, there was still a battle where drivers were within DRS of each other throughout the whole time. It wasn't like the field was entirely spread out the whole way through, and that was with quite a similar amount on the grid, 12, 13 drivers on the grid. This is the same amount as well, 12 drivers. I think the only difference you really have is that where certain cars are on this grid and where the car performance is. So these guys with preseason, like Danny, who've never raced before in RPL, Dom, who's only raced just a handful of times in Tier 1, and even Knights, who's not been up at the front that much often, they're going to be getting used to this and using this as a test session where they're going to learn, okay, what do the other drivers race like, and how can I kind of learn about these battles more so than other drivers who've not been doing preseason testing, like a Cookie, like a Skither, or whoever has not been showing up yet so far.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting as we're watching Speed now going up to the grid. Is he going to angle his car to the right? He is just a little bit, looking for the cleanest way to get off the line, as Gecko has gone for a straight attack. And now there's only one more thing to do. It's time to turn on those lights.
Here come the 5 red lights for the last preseason event before the brand new season, and it's drive-thrus from the first 3 cars. Big implications and drama to start this race. Of course they got amazing starts. They all have drive-thrus, but your net race leader is Knights, who holds on over Cryptic, and Cryptic's made contact with Red Fire. That's absolutely trouble because he's now in an Aston Martin sandwich, and it's about to be a collision. Oh, Jack Cryptic, get it settled down. Jack ahead. Jack in the net P2, but did he have to give it back? He may have. Reese also trying to go through. They get all squabbly here through Sector 1. Absolute chaos and drama to start the last preseason event before the brand new season. But Knights has got a big advantage. 2 seconds over Cryptic, and his teammate will surely help him here.
Yeah, it looked like a scene out of British touring cars as we watched both Ferraris and both McLarens going down the back straight. We have Hunter going on speed down the front, down the backstretch, my bad, into turn 11. Is there going to be contact? No, but ironically, through all of that, all the teams are together. We have a Ferrari 1-2, McLaren 3-4, Red Bull 5-6, Aston Martin 7-8, both Asses in 9th and 10th, and then Kipu and Danny being the sole one-car teams, respectively, for Williams and Alpine, as we see Gecko and Speed going through the 3rd sector. They get 3 laps to serve their drive-through. Who's going to serve it first? Are they all going to come in immediately? As, yes, they are. All 3 of them are just going to come in. What a shocking start to this Grand Prix.
Almost didn't get it in, by the way, Lando, because he had his teammate trying to look to the inside, by the way. That was absolutely hectic.
Unreal. And it's FRC Knights with a 1.6 second gap over PSR Cryptic on the medium tire, so he has the tire advantage. Now the question is, how hard is he gonna push? he's got a decent gap. Both Red Bull drivers not looking the best pace as of right now through qualifying. Let's see if they can ramp it up in the race. But right now it's all McLaren up front.
I think I'm allergic to seeing 3 different drivers have drive-thrus. I'm only used to seeing only 1 right there. That's insane how that has happened on the start. But the gap between Red Bull's TSR Cryptic and FRC Knights is down to 1.6 seconds. It's clawing down, to say the least. But Cryptic has used a lot of that battery just to get close to FRC Knights. So we're going to see how that pays off. You see the strategy in the bottom of the screen. Maybe a 2-stop from some of these teams is a possibility. It depends on what the tire life will be at the end of the stint. But as for Gecko, Speed, and Hunted, they're on the back foot majorly. However, in comparison to our race leader, because they got off the line so well and got such a good start, they only lost about 12, 13 seconds right there compared to you losing about 20 seconds in the pit lane under a normal circumstance right there. But everybody behind TSR Cryptic, all the way to Kipu right there, who did not have a pit stop made as Danny also came in. Knights did go off. All those guys are within DRS distance of one another. Remember, the new thing on this game for F1 cars is the fastest lap goes trading, like we're giving out candy here, or money. The DRS, Lando, this time is enabled on lap 2, a lap earlier. I wonder if any of the drivers will take big advantage of that and end up paying off with it, especially because we will see a lot more DRS trains enabled because of that.
Oh yeah, I think so. A lot of, especially I think now, really you want to drain the battery just in case you have a shocking of a start and you just want to stay in the DRS. But then it also raises that problem of, now I'm stuck in a DRS train, I can't really go anywhere. And like you said, with the straight line speed of these cars, all being different, now you really got to start thinking like setup-wise? Do I have to trim a little less front wing? Do I have to trim a little rear wing just so that maybe I can get through a DRS chain? You know, Alex Albon at Canada, he had to do that. Look where it paid him. So there's going to be a lot of games as the fact of Gecko, Speed, and Hunted. It was 7 seconds. It's now down to 5.7. They are catching and they have an
Fire
going off of that.
has had a half spin, by the way, Lando. He lost a place in the process. That's unfortunate for him.
And also going through that corner, Speed was quite literally at a 90-degree angle going into the corner. I don't know how he's kept it safe, but he is starting to lose time on his Ferrari teammate, Gecko. I think the main thing now is just they need to catch. They're not too far behind. It's still possible, but it is an unfortunate start for their Grand Prix.
Siri, Dom, Red Fire pick up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. They're our first ones and probably not our last ones with the way track limits can be around the circuit for drivers. DRS online for Speed and Hunted on Gecko. Gecko sets the fastest lap, and that's to no surprise at all. Considering what we saw in qualifying from them, they should be going fast in their cars, and they should get to at least Kipu in no time. But, like we always say, catching's one thing, passing is another. How difficult would Kipu make that situation for those drivers? Probably not a lot for Hunted, but maybe a little bit more for Gecko and Speed. Remember, we do have a lot of different things to talk about in terms of, not dirty tactics, but at least holding another driver up just maybe a second, maybe 5/10, maybe not giving somebody DRS because you're in the same academy as them, because the Alpine and McLaren Academy are the same for Hunted and Kipu. We have Egg and Red Fire doing a bit of a swap down the back straight. That's for 5th place. That now means, as you were saying earlier, Lando, Red Bull, Aston, and Haas now have all their teammates right there with them in the next spot after.
Yeah, it's getting very touch and go here in the middle sector, but the McLaren is still holding pretty strong out here up front with Nice. It stayed at constant 1.6, even with that little excursion 2 laps to go. The McLaren holding on very nicely, but Cryptic just starting to maybe fade away just a little bit, maybe trying to recharge the battery for an attack run. And, you know, if I'm both Red Bulls, maybe on the back stretch, you know, I don't know how strong the DRS will be. Maybe try to slingshot, you know, Reese in front of Cryptic. Maybe that could break that 1 second gap. It's now 1.3. I say it's worth going. You have both cars. You have I want to say a comfortable gap behind, but you have an Aston behind. It doesn't hurt to try to do something, right?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, but agree with you at the same time. Here's why. You're not going to want to switch Cryptic and Reese for the reason of FRC Knights as they close in and almost get within DRS. The thing with them is you would only switch them for one of 2 reasons. You have the tire life, by the way, overnight, so you wouldn't do it for him. You do it because Jack Miles is approaching quite close. He's right behind. And also, Gecko and Speed are already 1.6 away from Kipu. With their pace, they may even catch up to Cryptic and Reese right after the pit stops right here, to where they're within distance of him. And FRC Knights had a major slide there, and I think Cryptic almost followed him right there in the background. Red Fire and Egg traded spots.
Yeah, it's getting very interesting now. The McLaren on the medium tires, maybe just starting to go just a little bit after that magnificent slide. And now both Red Bulls are now in the DRS of the McLaren. What will happen next? We're about to find out, as Cryptic is just gaining ever so slightly to the back end of that McLaren. But, you know, clean air is king, like you said before.
Ooh.
Catching is one thing, passing is another. We'll see what
That
happens.
lockup from Cryptic is exactly why it's a fair point you just made. Catching is one thing, passing is another. That was a major lockup at the fallen corner. Luckily, he had DRS to help him to catch back up.
And he had a narrow wash there in the middle portion of turn 1. The Red Bull not giving him the stability, as we have moves getting played around Kipu on the Ferraris through Sector 1. It's crucial for these Ferraris and of Hunter to get by this Alpine as quickly as it can. This Alpine, very, very slow, but Kipu making it look very, very nice and clean. But it's only a matter of time before the backstretch shows up. As Gecko, 3 seconds track limit violation.
I will say with Kipu, he did pull a switcheroo at turn 1. You had the desperation kicking in from Speed right there, going for the move. Speed is through, but will Gecko and Hunted follow suit? You got Red Fire overtaking Egg right there on the straight. That is constant swapping between them, but now it's a race into Sector 3. We got both Ferraris going at it. Speed on the inside, Gecko on the outside. Gecko with the costly track on a penalty surely wants to at least find something here. And now Hunted maybe almost getting tapped from Kipu in the accordion style effect right there from them all trying to get it woed down. It's all fine now, but although they've got by Kipu, their next target will be Dom, and they're about to be under 10 seconds away from race leader Knights. The interesting thing with Hunted being where he's at, will Knights kind of be a distraction for, I guess, Cryptic and Reese in this race to battle it out for the race lead while they have Hunted and those guys catch back up in the drive-thrus. Knights is not exactly extremely fast in this race. He's got both Red Bulls and Astons catching, but remember, he is on the better tire right now too as well.
Yeah, and it looks like down the backstretch, Speed was trying to give maybe even more of a toe to Gecko just to clear the Alpine. So it got a little antsy, but nonetheless they all made it through, and now they have a more harder job. They have to get within 2 seconds now of Dom up ahead in the Haas. But meanwhile, up front, the McLaren of FRC Knights is all over the circuit. The back end of that MCL 38 is just hanging loose, and this is it right here. This could be the best chance for Cryptic as we go down the backstrip to Sector 2. Here he comes. Are both Red Bulls going for the attack? I think so. Here we go. Down goes the McLaren, up goes the Red Bull into turn 11. Are they going to keep it? Yes, they are. It's a Red Bull 1-2.
Cryptic and Reese, 2 teammates this season. They have former history, but luckily, oh, slide, that was Gecko, and he somehow remained straight. I just don't know how he was able to keep that right in front of Hunted. He just planted his car so well for Hunted not to hit him and spin him fully around. But yeah, Cryptic and Reese, they have history, but luckily they were able to resolve that when last season Reese was re-signed to Red Bull after the Chiller's lack of performance, which is why he's now at the Ferrari Academy. We have DRS online for Reese on the back of Cryptic. Reese, the only Tier 1 champion in this race, is Hunted gets a 3. That's not good. Reese, the Season 9 champion. Cryptic, a one-time winner back in Season 6. Danny, a 3-second. And Jack Miles, another Grand Prix winner up here in the fight as well, a 3-time F1 winner.
Yeah, just looking at both of the Red Bulls, Reese is just having a lot more comfortability in that Red Bull compared to Cryptic. That second Red Bull is looking very nice and stable through every single corner. Maybe Cryptic's feeling a little bit of pressure of that Red Bull behind as we see Jack going for a move into the hairpin on the McLaren. He's going to leave him all of the space, and now it's going to be a drag race down the back.
Neck and neck for now. Knights holding on. Jack wants it. Now for our race lead. The Red Bulls do go for a swap. Reese is out in front. Cryptic behind. Now Knights trying to fend off Jack. Jack on the inside line. Jack is through. But will he hold it? The answer does become yes. Look at the ERS between the top 4 here. 25% for second through fourth. But Reese Dainty, I must say, has managed his ERS quite well. 55%, now going on none on the battery. So what that will do when you go on none is it will make you quite a bit slower. It will back you up, but you save so much battery from it to where when you turn back on the jets, it will be absolutely insane. Dom gets a penalty. We have 5 drivers of the 12 in this event having track limit penalties. That's going to be so costly for later on.
Absolutely, penalties kill races, and for half the field right now, it will kill their race come the end of 28 laps. But I will say the Aston Martin of Jack is absolutely soaring right now. Incredible pace by the Aston Martin driver. He is just pounding down the laps, and I think he could be an outsider. If there's no top 3 car that wins, I think that Aston Martin's got a chance. It's Red Fire, teammate of Jack Miles. You have 3 seconds for track limits. Another one bites the dust.
DJ Khaled would be proud of me for that one. But yeah, with Jack Miles, he was on podium quite a bit last season. And to add insult to injury in a way, his teammate won a race. But luckily for Jack, I mean, I thought he was quite bad in F1 cars from what he was saying. He won the F2 preseason events earlier today, and he said, well, I'm much better in F2 cars now than F1. But I think he's proven that that's a lie unless that we just don't see the two Ferraris and the other McLaren up here showing what really Jack is capable or not capable of here. It's very interesting to see him close to both Red Bulls, but it's also interesting to see that Speed has now got by Dom in the fight for trying to get back into the field. If Speed or Gecko, as Dom lets the Academy teammate through, if Speed or Gecko end up somehow winning this race, driver of the day worthy right here. Reese, Cryptic, Jack, and Knights have been our top 4 for quite a bit, in obviously different orders since the drive-through, but at one point, Speed was 14 seconds back from our race lead. He's now just shrunk that gap to 7.9.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying in the Ferrari, and Gecko had a nice little slide out of the hairpin on the backstretch. Probably compromised him to get by the Haas a little later than sooner, but both of them are now clear of the Haas, and now, once again, Speed is just going to keep on tracking down the other Haas of Egg. These 3 drivers, Hunted, Gecko, and Speed, are just absolutely going on a tear of overtaking. But again, with every car they pass, it will get harder and harder. And come the first pit stop, it'll be really, really interesting to see where they all shape out to be. This is shaping up to be a really exciting end to this Grand Prix, come the end of 28 laps.
It'll be interesting to see if this track is on the calendar as well, because the difference in managing your ERS, the difference in overtake versus none on the back straight, it's absolutely wild. I doubt we'll see anybody use none on that kind of straight. You'll surely use medium, but it's something to look out for definitely during the season. Hunted gets a move on Dom. Meanwhile, he had a little lockup with clearing him. But yeah, this is going to be quite interesting to say the least when the season does come around. We got 20 races for the F1 calendar, 10 for Tier 2, 10 for Tier 3, and Knights is off. What has happened to the McLaren drivers? He's trumbling around now, and there's another spin. That's Dom facing the wrong way. While that was happening, Cryptic picked up a 3-second as well.
Yeah, it looks like both of them had the same issue, just maybe a spin as Gecko with another 3-second time penalty to add to the end of his race. It looks like both of them just had a nice little loss of the rear end through the 3rd sector. Unfortunate, but that McLaren after lap 6 has just fallen off those medium tires, and I expect him to come into the pits. Yes, there he goes, into the pits, as Jack has gotten by the other Red Bull of Cryptic. I've said it before, Cryptic was struggling on those hard tires compared to his teammate, and now Jack has made it through, up to P2.
Not what Dom wanted, not what Knights wanted. They both retire from the event. I don't think they would during the regular season, if I'm being honest, just because you'd have more time with the potential of a safety car to bring it up. But I'm sure with those cars, they've surely learned something for the season that other drivers may have not. Cryptic and Jack, you mentioned that was a swap. Speed and Gecko is close within DRS and striking distance. I don't know if Gecko would go for it, considering he does have the track limit penalty to spare. But he has a lot more ERS, so maybe he can tag along with Speed here, and he almost runs in the back of his teammate on the straight. That would have been treacherous and would have ended in tears for both Ferrari guys, but while they try to get back into the field, Gecko's the one leading the charge right there now for 6th place over Speed. And Josh, a former Tier 1 winner, 2 different times, competing in the 24-hour Le Mans for us in the RPL UK entry, has just given us an update. Luke Grange in the car, he's now up to P5. Good to see right there.
Incredible stuff for them running the 24 hours of Le Mans. We wish them the best of luck, and hopefully they bring it home on the top step. As focusing a little bit more onto the race, I am really, really interested in seeing Jack's pace. He's keeping up with Reese. He just needs to break the 310s. He's absolutely flying in this Aston Martin. What can he do?
I'm truly amazed with the Ferrari pace as well, if we want to talk about other drivers being in contention here as Kipu pits. Last game, Ferrari had the most poles in Season 9 over Red Bull. Well, they didn't have a single pole for a straight season into Season 10 because Red Bull were so dominant in both the qualifying and the races. Obviously, Red Bull had more wins in the races and qualifying in Season 9 and 10 both. But Ferrari really seemed to find their stride now with both drivers. They have the car, they have the drivers, and here they go with a move on an Academy teammate. Gecko threw an egg.
Nice little half block there by Egg, as both Ferraris should easily clear Egg going into the gear. Job done, and I gotta say, this Ferrari just looks like the best all-around car. It looks good in qualifying, and right now, through 12 laps of this race, this car has looked really, really planted to the ground.
On rails.
It just looks like a car that you could just pick up and just drive to the limit. No issues with it. And I mean, look at the ERS on Gecko. I mean, that's just
A lot better than it was a few laps ago.
Everybody.
Same with speed. They really are
just got
zooming.
2
To
seconds.
your point in chat, Faded. I don't know what to say with this car. Oh, wiggle right there from Gecko. I really think if you put the right driver in this car, it can be fastest. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not the fastest car though. I mean, we know Red Bull looks like the fastest car. I'll say this though. It looks like the most consistent car all around with the drivers we've had in these cars so far. You had Cookie in the car in Abu Dhabi in the social race earlier on this week. You had Valkyrie in the Red Bull in Austria, and she may not be the most consistent of drivers, but I do see a little bit more flops in that car on the wet from what I've noticed. Obviously, you know, wet is the great equalizer. And Tier 2 yesterday, JTK was quite good with it. So I really think it's more of a track-dependent car. And just like we mentioned yesterday, a 3-horse race, a 5-horse race, it's all possible. And you know what? Red Fire is not too far off Cryptic, and Jack is just barely ahead of Cryptic as Cryptic's going for the move. So Aston Martin have got their stuff figured out, but not enough as Cryptic just cuts Jack off right there and stays ahead.
Yeah, Cryptic had a nice run going down the back stretch and took that opportunity. Now, if you're Reese, what do you do? I think you just have to keep pushing on. Jack's got a lot of pace. But Cryptic, can he start maybe climbing back up the order? Maybe he's gotten that tire issue nice and sorted out. Maybe he's finally starting to buckle down in that RB20. But both Aston Martins, as Cryptic's actually just going to come in the pit. Here we go.
Wow.
It's underway here at Circuit of the Americas. We're going to look at the Red Bull crew. It's the yellow-walled medium tire going on. No big surprise. Should be a nice and clean stop. There it is. 1, 2. And it'll come right back out in nice clean air.
Well, it's a very chaotic start with the pit stops getting underway because this could become a 6-way race. Red Bull versus Aston versus Ferrari. Hunted, obviously, falling off and can't get by the Struck and Haas of Eggles. Eggles, a former Tier 1 podium sitter twice, and a former pole sitter once, hoping to maybe do that again this season if he gets a Ferrari opportunity. Maybe thinking of leaving the Ferrari Academy based on rumors that have circulated throughout this week. Obviously not happy with J&T Gaming, as he's the team principal. He feels like J&T kind of screwed him over in a way. He said Egg was supposed to be the first choice, and maybe Egg wants to go to the Williams to go back for more straight line speed this time. I don't know. We'll see what Egg wants to do. Haas not really the fastest car at all in a straight line, quite slow. And you can already see that even with the same ERS pretty much in terms of what they were using. They were both using medium. Obviously, Hunted had DRS, but he had 50% worse on the battery and still overtook Egg by quite a margin.
Yeah, it just does not look fun in the straight line for the Haas. And put it to your point, I mean, for me, when it comes to just driving realistic cars, I've never been in a car that's had a lot of straight line speed, so I wouldn't really complain about it too much. But that's not me. You obviously gotta understand that people suit it as, yes, race leader in. It should be the yellow wall mediums. Of course it is. Should be a clean stop because there's no such thing as pit stop issues.
One thing I'm thinking of from the Red Bulls that I need to see improvement from this season in terms of their drivers. Cryptic just has to be better when he gets the call to Red Bull because he's been good in those bottom field cars from the end of last season, not good in the top cars. And for Reese, he needs to get better with his strategy. He's been great so far in this race. Ooh, it was so close to the Red Bulls clashing. Cryptic out ahead on the undercut.
That was very, very close. If Christian Horner was a real person in this game, I bet he'd be nervous. But they kept it clean. There wasn't any contact.
Asking what the hell happened.
They kept it clean, but now the undercut has paid off for Cryptic, but not by much. But now, when do Jack come in? When does Red Fire? How about both of the Ferraris? I mean, they got DRS on Red Fire. They're right back into this game.
Yeah, they are. Here we go, Gecko. The long way around is up and into second place in this race. Can Speed take over P3 on track right now? He would have P2 based on the penalties being applied right now. Reese and Cryptic go for another swap, the two Red Bulls. number 48 versus what used to be Cryptic's number 3, but Cryptic, what number is he running this game? Can't see it.
Cryptic running the 5.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably why. But yep, Cryptic and Reese, 2 former teammates as well back in Season 9 of this race. They were actually in the fight for the win against Ads. Yep, Gecko and Redfire. This is interesting because Speed and Jack are both extending. Do we see a pair of soft tires put on their car? Cookie did it.
That'll be very, very interesting to see the soft tire being used. It looked like, I mean, from the McLaren, it just looked like after about 8 laps, the tires just died. So it's very interesting to see how these tires are behaving on a lot of these race cars. As we see Gecko coming out of the pits, Redfire just behind. They're gonna have a nice little gap. Oh, that's a bit of a clumsy penalty. But nonetheless, they are ahead of the McLaren of Haunted. But now it's all about closing that gap. It's 7 seconds between Gecko and Cryptic. Can they get it done? And by the way they've been driving the Ferrari, I think it's possible. This car has looked very stable in all phases of this race so far. It's Hunted with another track limit penalty.
Cannot believe that he's up to 6 seconds. Him and Redfire both on 6 seconds compared to Gecko being on 9. Cryptic 27% on the battery. Reese 13%. Let's see what the Red Bulls have in store for us during this. I think a lock up there, maybe a little late on the brakes though instead from Cryptic. Redfire still following Gecko. But, you know, Lando, I was told the undercut's not really that powerful this game. Cryptic and Reese, they pulled off the undercut. Cryptic pulled it off on Reese, got ahead originally. And Cryptic and Reese, what, they had maybe a 5 second gap maybe at the original start of the start of pit stops. Now it's a 7 second gap. I thought the undercut was not so powerful. Well, we'll find out here when Jack and Speed both do make their pit stops. What tire do we see? From Jack's point of view, we see the mediums. From Speed's point of view, we see the mediums. So I think less soft to medium strategies on this game, but hard, medium, medium, hard. There you go. Here they come.
Yeah, and I think the undercut did kind of maybe work a little bit for Cryptic. He was just outside the DRS, and as we saw 2 laps ago, got right alongside his. It's getting all argy-bargy coming out of turn 1. Here as Jack just edges ahead of Redfire Tiger. Now, the gap is 6.7 seconds. Can they close on both of the Red Bull drivers? I think it's possible, and it could shape up to be a last gasp effort. But right now, it's a Red Bull 1-2 here at Circuit of the Americas.
And you know what? The gap has not come down to what I thought it would be. 6.2 for Gecko. And remember, Speed has to get through Hunted. Now both Aston Martins and Gecko in order to chase his way up to 2nd place or even 1st place as the 2 leaders swap it around. Cryptic in front of Reese. Little tactics there from the Red Bull guys trying to help each other out. Jack is in hot lap and gaining on Gecko on the straight. He gained about 4 tenths right there at the end of it. That was quite miraculous from Jack. He's got Redfire as teammate for company. Redfire not normally a teammate of Jack's, usually a rival of Jack's, but they're in the same academy, just different tiers. And I will say, one of the guys just like Gecko who've performed quite well so far at the start of this game in preseason events and open lobbies that have been hosted, time trial leaderboards as well. Redfire is one of those guys, just like Gecko, who have been up there and on the pace, and maybe we'll see a return back to Tier 1 if he keeps it up.
Yeah, it's looking very touch and go between that second train and the top 2, as really this is where they have to get in time. Every track zone, every sweeping corner. Because down the back straight, they actually lost 3 tenths down the straightaway. It's 5.5, now down to 5.2. So they are gaining, but the question is, how long is it gonna take? And really, how are their tires gonna be? You know, like you said, they have to catch, but it's really hard to pass. And both of these Red Bulls are in a perfect position to just play all the games in the world. They have each other. They've lined each other up. But on the other side of it, you have both Aston Martins looking right up there. This can get very spicy very quick. It's gonna come down to the last 5 or 6 laps of this Grand Prix.
Reese once again, pulling out from behind and going ahead of TSR Cryptic. Even with more battery, he's pulled off the move. And now Jack Miles is on the back of Gecko, maybe making him brake a little late, but the Ferrari just seems to get that car stopped just so much easier than the Aston. Now will the Ferrari get it stopped compared to the McLaren of Speed and Hunt? Yes, he will. Speed seems like he's not really been able to replicate the pace he had from the first stint, now in the second stint, but maybe the tire wear will kick in later on. Egg picks up a penalty. We only have 3 drivers without one. It's Speed, Jack, and Reese, the ones without penalties. Reese, Dainty, Jack, I think 2 drivers from the history of RPL in terms of last game cycle and just overall. 2 guys we've seen really perfect track limits throughout the time here that they've ran in this league in Tier 1. 2 former Tier 2 champions just seeming to get it quite right once again.
Yeah, it's now 3.8, so they are gaining about a second a lap, but the matter is, how are these tires going to factor us? I mean, this is really where the chunk of the time seems to be gained and sometimes even lost. It seems to be really the middle portion of Sector 3 and this first sector, that surely has got to be track limits for Gecko. There's Red Fire with another penalty, the FIA giving them out like candy today.
Hunted too. Add his name to the list. My goodness. Well, if Reese and Cryptic can keep doing the swaparoo down the straight once again and get it to perfection, it will work out. Reese is fully on the throttle. He's not using any more battery. He tried to push and use it, and now he's below the battery quite more on Cryptic. But now we got wheel to wheel. Yep, banging between the two. Just a little bit of touching between Jack and Gecko. Gecko down the inside now for the next corner. And as we get to these sweeping corners, there's contact. Jack and Gecko both make contact, and Gecko's got a 3-second. This surely will hamper them trying to catch the Red Bulls, but Jack not letting off. Gecko not giving an inch.
Yeah, it was a bit clumsy by really both of them, but yeah, it's gonna cost them another lap there. They were gaining a lot of time.
Gecko, another track limit penalty too.
Yeah, Jack, I think he's got more pace, but they are catching still. But I think Jack just feels like he's got a lot more pace than Gecko, and obviously Gecko's not wanting to give that up. And obviously that was the end result of argy-bargy British touring car action in the third sector. But nonetheless, they kept it both straight. Hopefully there's no damage on either one of the cars, and now they have to regroup and go again to try to catch his Cryptic with a 3-second time penalty. It is getting
I thought Jack would have not
spicy.
got Cryptic, but now he could.
Yeah, and at 2.9 the gap is we have McLaren off that's Hunted. He's looped it around, and what seems so promising for both of the McLarens at the start of this Grand Prix has quickly unraveled to just almost nothing. But they have learned a lot about their car, I think. I think they do have a car that can challenge for wins, a lot of wins. Just need to really, I think this is just everybody just gotta get it down as whoa.
What a
That
save!
gets clear. I don't know what
From
what
Gecko.
happened there.
You're going to probably see that on the replay on the stream for quite a while. Gecko slid into the corner. He may have just got a warning for track limits because of it, but somehow kept it going, and he's ahead of Red Fire still. You know, even before that slide was happening, I was going to say, while you were talking about the whole Jack and Gecko skirmish just a lap ago, I was surprised Speed didn't catch up more, but now he has, and he's actually got a 3-second for good measure as well. So that's unfortunate for the Malta driver. Yeah, he was 2.6, now he's 1.4. So whatever it was right there, whether it was the mistake from Jack and Gecko or Gecko as a whole on the braking zone, he's now caught up to 1.5 being the gap, and Hunted's in and Hunted's out. So Hunted, our third retirement of the event, but a double McLaren DNF, the first time that has happened since F122 in RPL in all tiers. But yeah, I think even though it's a double DNF today, it's a lot of promise for the season, because although they were probably third fastest at some circuits last game, they're much more comfortably third fastest this game. And Reese with a big slide there.
Yeah, it's getting really, really, really close now. 1.7 between Jack and Cryptic. It is starting to shape up to be an absolute COTA classic. I don't know why I said that, because most COTA races, the leader just wins by 20 seconds. As Red Fire...
Still usually good races.
Yeah, very underrated circuit.
Good
Has
track.
Red Fire gets FIA'd once again. But now, can Jack close just a little bit more on both of these Red Bulls? But it's going to be really hard to pass one Red Bull, let alone two. They are together. They have DRS on each other. This is going to be a very offensive-heavy game for Jack. He needs to play this very aggressive. Maybe not the way him and Gecko went at it, but definitely needs to put the hammer down now. It's 1.3 going up the hill into turn 1.
Well, we got a move from 8th and 9th place. FX7 Danny, we've not talked a lot about him. One of the guys who come over from Eggs League now this season. Makes a move on Kipu. Kipu wants to go back down the inside, and he almost tags the rear wheel of the Williams. Good close quarter racing between the two cars that are like 8th and 10th in the performance patch, it seems. Or sorry, 8th and 9th in the performance patch, it seems. Good racing there, but as I was going to mention with Cryptic right here with Reese, Cookie, when he took over team principal of this academy, he put these guys in this exact scenario to where if a car, just like Ferrari or McLaren, were closer to these guys, they have two drivers up here to defend it off if Cookie wasn't here, and here they go, swapping once again. Cryptic to the lead of this race. Also, Speed finally getting an overtake done. He's finally leapfrog another position on the field. So it's, like I said earlier, Lendo, it's a 6-car race now for a race victory, but it's Reese over Jack Miles based on the penalties right here. It's going to be won on track by a driver most likely with a penalty, but when the penalties do get applied, it could become Reese or Jack's race to lose.
Yeah, Jack's starting to struggle here, trying to close in. It's stayed at a 1.3. He just needs a little bit more. It's 1.2. Just needs to find a little extra juice in this Aston Martin to give him that chance. Maybe slingshot the Ferrari of Gecko, but we've seen how those two have raced. Is Gecko going up the hill? Is he going to make that move? Of course he's going to make that move. The Ferrari slides down the inside. Is Jack going to fight this one back? It looks like he is. They're going to go side by side into the S's, but the Ferrari edges the head. And this maybe could be the best chance for Jack. If the Ferrari could just get a little closer, all he needs is 2.5 tenths. Can he get that 2.5 tenths? I think he is. 1 second. As we're clocking up the hill, about to start the downhill descent into the hairpin. 9 tenths. Game on. And
you know what? Although he got another penalty, it's exactly what Jack needs, because Jack will be in DRS with these guys. And if Gecko fights against Reese and overtakes him, and Cryptic doesn't help out Reese here, it's going to be Jack's race then at that point. But we've got 6 cars in the fight for the victory right now as Kipu and Danny are back at it. But for our race lead, Reese retakes it. Cryptic back down to P2. And like I was saying earlier about Cookie not being here, you got a position where both Red Bulls, although they weren't great in qualifying at all, they've got quite a good car in terms of race pace to where their car is their cars are 1-2 and in the fight here to where they can work with each other. And they don't need anything to happen between the two teams behind that. They have each other right here. So this is the exact thing when the Academy management roles got swapped there with Cookie and Cryptic that Cookie kind of enabled with this. But the interesting thing now, though, is I think Gecko has the pace advantage. He obviously has the track limit penalty here. But if you're Cryptic, how do you fight this in terms of what the track limit penalties are right now? You got Reese having none, Jack having none. How do you go about this if you're one of those guys, as Kipu is now facing the wrong way? He's maybe had a coming together with Danny.
Yeah, this is a very interesting thing as Gecko. I mean, he's getting ready for something crazy. That battery is fully ready to go. Get ready for the backstretch. And if you're Cryptic, I mean, this really is a really hard situation.
Well, if you don't mind cutting in. If you don't mind me cutting in, Lando, this is the scariest situation for Cryptic and Reese. Gecko has a fully recharged battery right here.
This is going to get absolutely insane. As here we go. Battery on, horsepower engaged, drag reduction system engaged. What's Cryptic going to do? Has he nailed this attack from Gecko? Yes, he has. He's left enough of a gap to where he doesn't gain all that time on Reese. But he's kept the Gecko behind, nice and honest. Oh, and then he goes wide. This is it. This is a chance right here for Gecko. Power slide on the RP20. Oh, he doesn't try to switch a route to the inside. He's going to stay behind. Just like that.
Does he want his teammate there for company? I just wonder.
comfortability. I think you have that teammate behind you.
Well, I mean, Jack's vulnerable to speed now, but, I mean, obviously Cryptic being vulnerable to Gecko will put Reese in an uncomfortable spot. Little bit of a slide, little lock up there, but here we go. Lap 25 out of this race. And just a few more laps of our final preseason event on F124 before we get the season kicked underway. Kicking underway is battling for 4th place. Down the inside. Speed almost clipped the teammate right there, and he makes contact with Jack Miles. Both banging wheels here as they head to the S's, and now Speed is out and ahead. The perfect situation for Ferrari to at least fight the Red Bulls on track, but a shitty situation here for Jack Miles as he's now put down to 5th from Reese being in 1st with those track limit penalties.
Yeah, and Jack being really in the best spot has now turned into the worst spot, as now it's 2 Red Bulls versus 2 Ferraris versus 2 Aston Martins, as Gecko's gonna dive into the inside of the Red Bull. What a move! Is the Red Bull gonna get the switcheroo? He's gonna get a lot of traction, and now here we go. That Red Bull trying to give his teammate all the help in the world, but Gecko fights it off, and now this is it, gaining all the way down the backstretch. Is the Red Bull gonna fight back? He's gonna go for that launch. He's the race driver.
Whoa!
Into turn 11. He's gonna force him off. He's gonna touch. Big contact.
Through! Goes Speed on the both of them! He'll take the place that was just missing right there. Cryptic back down the inside, and Speed gets cut right off. Gecko picks up a 3, and it's all kicking off. The gap between the lead was about 4/10 at the end of that straight. Now it's 1.6. This is incredible. 4 cars, now 5 cars, under a second. Put him under a damn blanket. Oh, that was a bit of lag from the Ferrari of Gecko almost going off.
And it all started in Sector 1. At the end of Sector 1, into the hairpin, as now the Ferrari's gaining all the time. He's going to go all the way to the inside, to the white line, to the pit exit. He's going to switch around. The Red Bull tries to switch back, hits the rear wing. And now Speed has the clean air. Now he needs to gain 7/10 on Reese. Granted, penalties implied, it won't really matter, but hell, for the entertainment of it, this is cracking racing.
Lando, 2 things to mention from that whole skirmish. How in the world did nobody go facing the wrong way? The second thing to mention as well, with the ERS from the start of that straight, Gecko, oh, a big mistake from him, and he's around now finally! Oh, he's got damage. Red Fire had to avoid, and he got a 3 for it as well. Gecko's out. But, as I was just about to say, Gecko definitely learned a lot with that ERS throughout this race, even though he's retired. The interesting thing that I saw was he was 1.1 back going side by side with Cryptic at the start of this straight right here, and then got to 4/10 back from Reese. Incredible on the battery. Jack through for 4th place on the teammate.
Yeah, it's getting very messy there, and just a shame for Gecko. He really had a shot to win this one, but again, a lot of things to learn. That Ferrari looking very, very handy in the hands of him. But now, 1.1, Reese versus Speed versus Cryptic versus Jack. This is what it's all about. And I wonder if Jack's got damage to the front wing through that whole skirmish. Or he's maybe just lost time.
I don't see any. There might be slight damage. Red Fire, by the way, when he had to take avoiding action, he picked up a 3 for it. Cryptic started to lose pace on Speed here for a second. Speed has gone really quite quick since he got by Cryptic. He's not been exactly much faster than Reese, but he's closed the gap down, and he's using all the battery he can while Reese is trying to save it now through the S's. 3-horse race now from what was a 6-car race? It's fair to say. This has been quite incredible. Oh, big slide from Cryptic. He saves it, though.
Yeah, it's getting very nip and touch. As the Red Bull of Reese, the first big slide coming off of the corner. This is it. Speed, he doesn't really have a lot to attack with compared to Reese on defense. Somewhat similar battery, but just that extra 5% can mean the difference between winning this race and losing this race on track. Everybody wants to go for the on-track win, as now we watch Speed going down the straightaway, gaining all the time in the world. He's not going to be close enough. But just look how good he is under the braking there, just getting the rotation through the Sector 3. Now he's going to swap him up, maybe looking for a last-ditch effort. Now we're coming to the final lap of this race. What's going to happen? Will there be a DRS game?
Can't believe it. Can't believe we're about to reach the final lap of this race. I want to mention something with Reese Dainty first. Season 9 champion 2 seasons ago. We're on season 11 here as we enter the season. But the interesting thing for Reese is he set a personal best record when he went back to Red Bull last season. Consecutive podium streak for himself. Then after that, it wasn't really what he would have wanted it to be. It was really a struggle for him, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But right now, he's trying to hold on for the on-track victory while Speed is moving around, jockeying in the braking zone. Reese Dainty does hold on for now, but just like before, back in the Season 9 event of this race, it was Reese versus Ads for a first win from Ads in the Mercedes in this race in Texas. Right now, it's a last lap ball between Reese and Speed right here, with Cryptic, the teammate, trying to hold on for P3 on track.
Yeah, this is going to come down to just how much of a gap can Reese pull onto the backstretch. 3/10 is the gap, but just the battery level is not looking very good on both cars. But one has DRS. This is it. This is the move right here. Down the backstretch, they're deploying all the battery in the world. He's going to go to the left, Reese staying to the right. He's going to tuck back into the slipstream. He's going to try to go for a re-overtake. No, Speed through into provisional P1. Given penalties here about to be dished out in about a second of time as Jack has gone and made the move on Cryptic for P3 on track. This should be P2 if he can hold on.
What incredible racing we've seen from preseason. Cryptic with a desperate move. Tried to go back down the inside but couldn't do it. Speed, the full-time Sauber driver, has shown immense pace, and he'll win this race on track. Reese Dainty, though, an absolute heartbreaking end to last season. Had to call it quits due to health issues, but you know what? How about put an exclamation mark on this one? Starting preseason off with a victory in Texas. He'll get the victory in preseason here to end off things before the season starts next week. Reese Dainty, showing he's one to watch out for so far in these battles. And track limit penalties, keeping himself free on the track limit. Same with Jack Miles picking up a P3 finish. Cryptic, Red Fire, Egg, and now Danny and Kippu round out our places. What an immense race with the way we saw things. Cracking racing, cracking battling. No one was giving an inch, but I will say, I mean, Gecko said it was for the fun of it, which is why he picked up so many track limit penalties, but these guys kept it quite clean, to say the least, and I'm even surprised they didn't crash there until Gecko crashed on his own.
Yeah, they kept it very hard and very aggressive, very fun, but nonetheless, a great race to end the preseason thunder. And now we wait for the real thing, and Jack only 6/10 off of getting P2 there, off of Speed, but nonetheless, a great showing by really just everybody in that top six. Both Ferraris, both Aston Martins showing very promising pace. But how about that? From having struggles in qualifying, both Red Bulls up there, and what could have been a 1-2, still lands Reese on the top step of the podium.
Jack not happy with Gecko. Those are the only drivers really, it seems, not happy with each other, but I'm sure Jack is quite happy with the result, though. He really kept it clean on track limits. Same with Reese Dainty as well. I mean, Reese, you know what? A lot of drivers were very critical of the guy at the end of last season and said he needs to be removed from his seat. He's not really doing what he should be in Red Bull. And you know what? I can understand the argument to an extent. He had a 9 consecutive podium streak, and then after that streak ended, he only got 2 races on the podium in the fastest car at the end of last game, and he was, like I said, battling health issues. So of course he had to call the end of the season quite early, which he didn't want to do, but he seems like a lot of the personal stuff he had going on, he's got that fixed. He's in a better mindset, and he's coming swinging. His qualifying pace, Lando's not great at all, but his race pace is a mile faster than what it seems from the way things stand. It's quite incredible to see the way things ended off from tonight's event. Your podium celebrations underway. We already just saw that. I can't see results on my screen, but we went over them. F7X Danny, or FX7 Danny, whatever it is, one of the two. Kippu 57, they were our last 2 finishers. We lost, I believe, 5 from the event.
Yeah, great result for really all of them, and Egg finishing in 6th with the Williams, and Kippu and that Williams had a very nice battle, very clean battle from what we saw, and really just a quiet race.
Yeah, I mean, they had a few times where they were swapping it back around, trading the places. It was quite nice to see that. Didn't even realize it, But our fellow Canadian driver, one of our fellow Canadian drivers, RPL Ardell at the Canadian Grand Prix. Wish him the best of luck there, and a safe trip, by the way, back home. One of our only two Canadian drivers in RPL. Canadian Grand Prix qualifying is on after this at 4 Eastern, 9 UK. That's why we had preseason this week an hour earlier on the Saturday, but we saw Tier 3 preseason happen. We saw Tier 2 preseason happen. We saw F2 and now F1. They ended off their preseason events. We plan to start the actual season next week for everything to kick off. I mean, Bahrain for Tier 1 through Tier 3, Spain for F2. What are we expecting, Lando, based on what we saw? I mean, everyone does seem quite aggressive for a preseason race like Gecko did, but it still provided quite the action at the same time, and the drivers not giving an inch. And it seems like, although it can be a bit easy maybe at times to pick up damage, it's also a bit harder to crash as well at the same time too.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna see is really, and I think this is something we need this finally stays. I don't think these races are gonna be determined after the first pit stop, right? I think every race could be determined by the end of maybe 2 to go. I think the field just looks very, very close. Everybody seems to be finding something with their cars that gives them that ever little more edge on each other. But the field, and thanks to the vehicle performance chart, is just everybody's really close. The cars are close. The drivers are close. It really can shape up to be a great season. But the questionable aggressive driving, should that change a little bit? Just a little.
Yeah.
It just needs, we shouldn't be slamming each other off like it's the British touring car race. But it is very, very promising to see all this racing happen.
Yes.
And just a few minor tweaks with the aggression, and I think we'll have a great season.
Yeah, I think we'll all end up okay. Usually at the start of the game cycle, I know it's a bit of an excuse you could say, but I know at the beginning of the game cycle we always have a bit more aggressive drivers and aggressive racing, and the standards can be a bit down, but once it gets figured out, it usually ends up being great. For Tier 2, your tier, Orlando, it took a little bit longer. It took the second season for things to end up being better, but for our F1 tier, it only took about 9 races for the DNF rate and the safety car rate to go down, and go without our first race without a safety car. It might be the same thing again, which is okay. It does take time for that at the start of each game cycle as the drivers learn each other, learn the game, learn their cars. But I think with what we saw today, to your point about close racing, it makes the dominant wins more special than normal. Last season, we saw a lot of 10, 15, 8, 20-second wins from Cookie a lot in the Red Bull. But that Red Bull's not as dominant anymore. We've got a car quite closer. And now the question comes for this tier as well. Will we see a 7th consecutive Constructors title from Red Bull? Or will McLaren take their first? Will Ferrari be back on the top since the first time since Season 1 for the Constructors title? Driver's title would be first time since Season 8. Mercedes, they've not won one in quite a bit. They don't have a fast car, but they have 2 good drivers with Cam and Josh. You just don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, and there's a lot of things we're going to come and find out next week at round number 1. So that will be it in just a moment. But to your point about dominant to my point about dominant victories and your point about close racing, maybe we don't see the 10-second, 20-second, 15-second margin Cookie had last season. Even qualifying seemed closer. We'll just have to find out. There's a lot of things, TBD, we'll call it, to be decided ahead of the brand new season. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I mean, I can't wait. This game, you know, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone shits on it, but everyone does kind of shit on it, to be fair. And I can understand why with a certain extent. But you know what? Even if the racing may not be as fun by yourself, I think the racing with the other drivers around you has become a lot more fun, a lot more close. And yeah, bring on season 11 F1. It's coming next week, folks. Ryan Searles, Lana Fornoris, your 2 commentators, signing off. We'll catch you guys for next week's events in Bahrain for the F1 cars and Spain for the F2 cars. We'll catch you then for the brand new season. Have a good one. We'll see you then.
Oh my.